Okay, we are on air. The Pachad Yitzchok I wanted to do today is the Pachad Yitzchok in Reshimos. Reshimos are in the back of the Sefer. They are less formal than the stuff at the beginning of the Sefer, and they were as most of the Sefer said over during the Purim Suda. Now, the particular issue with these is that they are mostly in Yiddish, which makes my conveying them perhaps more necessary to some of us, and makes them also a little bit more geschmack. So we're going to do a few of them, starting with Yud, which is on the first page of your handout. No, actually, I want to start with Yud Beis, so we have enough time, because Yud Beis is one of my favorites. Okay. Mitapor Yor Zurich. A few years ago, when a Mesiba von Mishnah Yain de Purim, in a Mesiba of the Mishnah of Yain and Purim, hopefully we all understand that, haben wir ungeheben reden, we began speaking, as the is dort zwei madregos in Shesia. There are two levels, two dinim, in drinking. Hat men geret die erste, niedrige madrega. We spoke about the first lower level. Und men hat gedarft nach dem reden die hechere madrega. And we have to speak, well, actually, we have to speak first about lower level, and we have to speak afterwards about the higher level. Eider men sagt die hechere, muss man nochmal übergesogen die niedrige. But after we say the higher one, we have to say the lower one again. Actually, it's incorrect. If we're going to say the higher one, then we have to say the lower one again. In other words, he wants to now give us both levels, the lower and the higher. And then before he had only given the lower one, now he gives both of them. Zwei Chaverim, there are two friends. Was haben in die junge Jahren bechevrusa gelernt zusammen. When their younger years learned bechevrusa together. Given not believe in nefesh, they were close to each other in heart and in soul. Nach dem, afterwards, seinen sie sich zuvor in die Welt. They started traveling all over the world. Zebekoi, but Zebekoi. This one went this way, this one went that way. They split. Hat sich gemacht amaisa, so it happened to turn out as zufällig haben sie sich getroffen in a kretschma. All of a sudden, they met each other in an inn, in a hotel. Kretschma is one of those old-time inns. Is man arrived gefallen, einer auf die zweite, so one fell on the other, hugging and obviously very emotional. Die Herzen haben sich geöffnet, the hearts were opened. Und Werte haben angeheben zu fließen, and the words started to flow. Azoi wie Minuten seinen gelaufen die Schoen, like minutes, the hours rushed by. Und gar plötzlich ist reingekommen der Balagola und geschreien. And all of a sudden, the Balagola, the person, the wagon driver, I don't know for both of them or one of them, it's not important, came and shouted, Seid zu bohren! It's time to go! Die Pferde seien schon muchon. The horses are ready, prepared. Die zwei Chaverim seien geblieben gefaltet. Geflecht. That the two friends were downfallen. They were crestfallen. What are they going to do? They still want to spend time together. Men will sich doch zusammenreden. They still wanted to talk to each other. Nor der Poyer lost it. But this coarse individual, the Balagola, is not letting them stay together. Ruft sich up einer. So one said to the other, keep it brumpen. Give him something to drink. Zoll gehen schlafen. Let him go to sleep. Velimir kennen schmusen. We can continue drinking. Kach azoi haben jüdischen Neshama so to the same thing. Jewish souls zusammen gelernt mit Mesivta der Kiyah. The Jewish souls learned together in Yeshiva Shamala before they came down to this world. Aber noch dem, but afterwards, is Yed and Neshama Rein in Ir Gufa Rein. Every Neshama went down into its individual body. The Chaverschaft, the Chavrusa, which everybody learned in Yeshiva Shamala before they came into this world, was rent asunder by people being born into this. Zebekoi v'zebeko, the bodies went here and the bodies went there. One doesn't know about the other. We can't find the chavrusas. But it happens that something happens by Sudas Purim. And we meet each other at Sudas Purim. Hearts. And we yearn to open our hearts. Kommt aber der Peuer and schreit, but the coarse person comes and shouts, Du darfst schon wegfahren von dem business. You have to travel away. You have to go to tend to your business. You can't stay here on Purim. It's over. Go somewhere else. Then small is the einzige Eitzah. Then the only Eitzah is, give der Feuerbrumpfen. Give the coarse person to drink. Soll gehen schlafen. Let him go to sleep. Ulamer sich zusammenreden. And let us talk together. So this is looking at this is the lower Madrega. This is the level of Purim, the Purim Suda as Ichud HaLevavos, the hearts of Yidden coming together in a way that they can't do it on a normal basis. And what happens is that the normal consciousness is the coarseness, which impedes upon the profound relationship taking place between the souls of the Jews who come together. So therefore what we do is we give the body to drink, we put it to sleep, and then, so to speak, we can rise up above that and bond together and make that special achdus, which is unique unto Purim. Lechnosis kol Yehudim. So that's one level of drinking. That the body is put to sleep, not literally in this case, but it's put aside. The das comes out. The das, or even one could go further. One could say the inhibitions, which normally have to do with das, which keep people apart from each other, are suppressed, and the tremendous chaverschaft, the tremendous achdus can occur and can continue. That's the lower madrega. Azoi can mir ganz gut drinken. We can drink very well in this level. Aber mir trinken hecher. We can drink higher. Der Rebbeinu Shalom hat reingegeben b'machol a koyach fun mezonos. Because Baruch Hu put in food a power of nutrition, of nourishment. Mezonos stark dem guf. Food strengthens the body. Stark dem seichel. It makes the mind stronger too. Aber in yayin, but in wine, hat Rebbeinu Shalom reingegeben a teva. Because Baruch Hu gave a nature to the wine, which is different. What's the difference? What he give it? As a stark der dimya. It strengthens the person's imagery, person's imagination, imagery, his power of fantasy, of being able to depict things which you can't depict in a sober state. As men learn zusammen. So when we learn together, the two of us, wherever we are, or many of us, is men sich mishatif in seichel. We connect to each other intellectually through the seichel. As men daven zusammen, when we daven together, halavai, it should be like this, is men zich mishatif in guf. Then we, is men zich mishatif in leib. Then we connect to each other in the heart, emotionally. Again, by davening together was like that, but that is the ideal. It's a little bit teamwork. Come together and believe. As men es zusammen, when we eat together, is men sich mishatif in guf, then we are physically connected, which is not a small thing, because the Chazal say in Masechet Sanhedrin, even a small bit to drink, to eat and drink, brings people together. Food has this capacity to cement relationships between people. But as men trinken zusammen, but when we drink together, is men sich mishatif in dinyan. Then we come together in our imaginations, in our imagery. Sitzen in Mishte Hayayin de Purim, to sit at the Mishte Hayayin of Purim, is der Teich, is the Pshat, Lomer fantasieren zusammen. Let's fantasize together. Fantasieren zusammen is gar andere Darga. To fantasize together is a completely different madrega. It's something above and beyond normal relationship between human beings and normal relationship between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. While fantasia allein is a mechaber. It says fantasy in and of itself is a connection. How so? Fantasia haste dimion. In Hebrew, we say that the word fantasy in Hebrew is dimion, similarity, dimayon, domeh. Dimion is their taich. What's the pshat? What is the pshat in the word dimion? Dimion is their taich. Weil ich in Seichel zet es euch gleich zu Chush, und in Chush zet es euch gleich zu Seichel, in a person, because in a person's intellect, he sees with his senses. In other words, the intellect connects to the senses, and that's how he perceives things, and vice versa. The senses connect to the Seichel, and they bring things into the mind. It's the dimin in jeder mentioned bazunderer. The dimion, the imagery in a person is something altogether separate. Am tzarif fun sein seichel zu sein chush. The seichel and chush, which normally one leads into the other, one is catalyst to the other, they're combined together. In other words, when a person sees something, he takes in the vision, the spectacle, he views it, and then he processes it. Or if he wants to see something, he processes in his mind, and then he goes and connects with it in his senses. But when in fantasy, everything takes place in the mind. The senses are take in what have taken in what they've taken in, and now in one's mind, things come together. Things which one has sense, things which one knows, they are put together in a way in which they are completely complex, and they're not similar to perhaps anything he's ever seen before. The Rambam says, right? You can imagine flying elephants, right? Because you know there's flight, and you know there are elephants. You can imagine flying elephants. Dimion means to bring two things together which are not normally associated, and make something of them. Now that's one type of imagination. Another type of imagination is imagery, such as the Piasector describes in the Hachsharas Havrechim, where a person makes a scene in his mind, whether it's Yetzias Mitzrayim or Yom HaMisa. Those are two examples he gives. Again, the imagery takes place within a person's mind and brings together many aspects of what he has stored up over time, but it's not coming from the outside in, or from the inside going out. It's all taking place within the inside. Heint as men is sich mitzaref durch mitzaref. So the dimion brings things together which are very, very vastly different. So that in and of itself is a power to bring things together. And then we have the wine, which is a power to bring things together. In other words, it brings people together with each other at a time when their power of fantasy is much more prevalent. It comes together with the wine. So then the connection between people is taking place in a completely different level. It's not based on the senses. It's not based on the seichel. It's based on being somewhere higher, above and beyond. Now, of course, what he means by this, at least I think, is the fantasies are not fantasies of Basar Adam. The fantasies are fantasies of Kedusha, of Avas Hashem, of Yiras Hashem, of Or Haman, of Baruch Mordechai. All those things are supposed to come together in a tremendous perception of Dimyon, bringing Doime to Doime to Doime, being Medame to Medame to Medame, and then doing together with Yisrael Raisa Kuchabrichu, with the Torah, with one's fellow Jew, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the higher madreg of drinking. Haint Azman is dich mitzaref, mitzaref ducha mitzaref. Today, when we come together through a mitzaref, that as mamish einem, we become literally one. This is the way to drink higher. So we had two levels of drinking. The level of drinking where we diminish the body, we give it to drink, send it away, so we can continue the relationship between each other. And I should add also, the Ravunim doesn't say this, I think it's a double Pachad, the relationship between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, the moment of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is fleeting. and therefore we have to do something to make it last. So how do we make it last? Make it last by diminishing the power of the body over us. And we can still connect to Kodesh Baruch Hu directly. The other one, the higher madrega is not just to connect, but to use one's imagery, to image in oneself all sorts of aspirations, all sorts of connotations, all sorts of types of accomplishments, all sorts of types of ambitions, whatever you want, to Kedusha and to Ahavas Hashem and to Avodas Hashem. That's the higher madrega, using the imagery which one has, which is strengthened by the wine, to use imagery of Kedusha and to participate with others in making that imagery. That's one. Okay, now I'm going to skip your Gimel. The time being, I know, let's do Gimel, it's quick. Nachli Simcha v'Shmini Atzeres. After the Simcha Shmini Atzeres, Sukkot and Simchas Torah, was willen mir noch von a Simcha von Purim? Why do we need another Simcha Purim? They have lots of Simcha. Okay, it's not such a big question, right? But we had so much Simcha till now. Why do we need also Simcha Purim? The Rambam sagt. Rambam says, Maya derech lavoso yiraso. What is the way to get to Avas Hashem? Yiras Hashem? B'shoashi's binding other ma'maisot. When you look at the wonders of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you come to Avon, to Yira, and all those emotions. They arouse you to those types of emotions of Avon, Yira. But there's this, is doch b'shoashi's binding gate oif alu chayvas avavos. In order to achieve any level of the obligation of the heart, which is the emoting in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ava, Yir, etc., it requires these binders. Because obviously, we have to be mizbayin in order to find Hashem. He's not apparent in front of us. When one finds it by being mizbayin and by Maisa, by being mizbayin in the Torah, by looking carefully and considering and analyzing Torah and various forms of Chachma and Mada and everything else which is out there, especially according to the Rambam. But Ava mitir izbainus, yes, Ava with its analysis, Yira mitir izbainus, and Yira with its analysis, and Simcha mitir izbainus, and Simcha also. The Simcha of any other yontif requires izbainus, requires an analysis of the day, of the type of Simcha, of the special segula of the day. Haben wir Tage von die Simcha und von Sukkos, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, Taka gestiegen. We Taka uplifted ourselves through the Simcha of these various different days. As wir haben die richtige Hisbeinus von Simcha mit die Simcha. If, assuming we had, the proper Hisbeinus of the Simcha with the Simcha that we had. Hein, vielen mir, but today what we want as the Simcha von Ashreinu Ma'atov Chalkeinu, the Simcha of Ashreinu Ma'atov Chalkeinu, how wonderful it is that we are Yehudim, the descendants of Mordechai and Esther, soll auf uns Poel sein on his Beinus. This is unique type of Simcha. The Simcha Purim is the Simcha without the Yisbeinus which Das requires, or rather which Das facilitates. In other words, yes, if you went through all the stages of Simcha, which you were supposed to go through with Hisbeinus, you should know there's an even higher madrega of Simcha. The Simcha which is without Hisbeinus. It doesn't require analysis. It's intrinsic and embedded within the neshama. And no other day of the year has the capacity, except for Yom Kippur, but that's a different type of Simcha. Some people would define the Simcha. It really is. But Purim and Yom Kippur are days where the Simcha is not because of his Beinanus in the day, but rather it's because of the feeling of Kedusha in and of itself. So it's a fascinating thing because, of course, it's Yom Tov Rabbanan, Purim at least. Not a Daraisa, but the Koyach of the Nes of Purim, which was one which was which was even Hester and which was not necessarily apparent, but which was perceptible. Chazal say that that's talking about the Nes of Purim. It was something which people perceived and saw in a way which didn't require his Beinanus. It didn't require analysis. And therefore, Midah Keneged Midah, the Simcha Purim, is something which should come without his Beinanus. We take away the Das, we take away the inhibitions, and you still have the simcha. That's a special madrig of simcha. Okay? That's you gimel. Now it's Yud Aleph. Atamasha b'gil sayom. You. This is a pasuk in Tehillim. I think it is. You rule the pride of the sea. Right? B'so galov, at the height of its waves, atot tishabchem, you praise them. Tishabchem is their taich. Do I don't know. We read this word. Do barogis zi. You say, it means you praise them. Praise Chazal. So Chazal asks a question. Tovi kumt es epis hashvach is lashon loim. Wherever we find a shvach, it means there's a certain type of heart, love involved in it. Shein Chazal as das is their sheva fun nigalei hayam. So they say Chazal say that this is the sheva fun nigalei hayam, that which we love about the waves. As they wissen doch as gleich beim Breg werden sie platzen. So Chazal say, in explaining this pasuk, what is loved here about the waves? What's loved in the waves is that they know that when they hit the shore, they're going to break. Never aber from Dustbecken, but nevertheless, the Kozman they zenen in Yam, as long as they're in the sea, tun ze zaira. They do what they're supposed to do. Und they stormen, and they storm. When they hit the breakers, they break. But when they're at sea, they storm as they should, even though they know what's going to happen afterwards. Was hart es mir? What would it hurt us? As nach Pesach, that after Pesach, will ich euch bleiben mit a bissel cherus. We'll still remain with a bit of freedom, right? After Pesach, we should take with us a flavor of cherus for the rest of the year. Was hart es mir? What would it hurt me? As nach Shavuos, will ich bleiben mit a bissel Torah. And remain with a little bit of Torah. It's not a bad thing. Und was hart es mir? What would it hurt me? As nach Rosh Hashanah, that after Rosh Hashanah, will ich bleiben mit a bissel Yira. They'll remain with a bissel Yira as Hashem. Was hart es mir? What would hurt me? As nach Yom Kippur, will ich bleiben mit a bissel Tshuva. I should remain with a little bit of Tshuva. Was hart mir? What would it bother me? As nach Sukkot, will ich bleiben mit a bissel Simcha. After Sukkot, I should remain with a little bit of Simcha. All these things are good things to take with us on Yom Tov. We have some of these Yom Tovim of Isur Chag in order specifically take these things with us to the Yom Tov. From the Yom Tov. Oi, aber es wird sein Rachmanis. But it'll be a big Rachmanis as nach Purim. After Purim, will ich bleiben mit a bissel ad lo yoda. Ad lo yoda after Purim is not something which you want to remain with. Is das Taka mein Shevach. So what's the praise? This is Taka my praise. Ich weiß as es wird platzen. I know I'm going to crash. I know it has to break. I know it has to end. Aber Kozman, ich sitz bei dem Tisch. As long as I sit by the Purim table, storm ich. I storm. So galov atot shabchem. At the height of the waves, you praise them. It's a very powerful idea, the idea of the Soka Lova Tota Shabchem, and I like to elaborate on it a little bit more. And this also goes in the vein of Yom Kippurim. All of Purim, all of Yom Kippur is about Ne'ilah. And the Ne'ilah, there should be moments, this year I was not zocheh to it for whatever reason, to moments of a tense upliftment, of tapping into one's or makiv, of feeling the connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of yearning for the Shekhinah. There has to be a moment that it could happen anytime during Yom Kippur, but it's really meant to be at the time in Ne'ilah. It's not something which can last. It's B'so Galov. It's going to break. But B'so Galov Atot Shabchem. When that one moment of profound upliftment, with the tide of the waves, it's worth everything for that. Even if it falls afterwards, it's not for naught. Something comes of it. That powerful, mighty experience, even if later on we don't see it, even later on we shouldn't see it, because when it hits the shore, it has to function differently. But B'so Galov Atot Shabchem, where that high experience, the heightened experience, is something which HaKadosh Baruch Hu praises, because it has its value in and of itself, even if it can't continue on into the rest of the year. The same thing is Zichar true about Purim. About all Purim is about at some point during the Suda, some point during the Mishnah Yain, some point during the Avodas Hayoim, a person should come to a cognition of Zekei Levanbein. V'ro kol avtzei haaretz as Yeshuas Elokeinu. Everybody should see in his own art the hashgacha. The first time I got drunk in Baltimore in Purim, I was drunk in Eretz Yisrael before that, a couple of years, but in Baltimore, so I remember going around before I passed out, was going over to everybody and saying, "Do you see the hashgacha? Do you see the hashgacha?" Because that was what I felt at that point. There's a special connection with hashgacha, which is the Dimyan of Purim. You can experience, even if it's not apparent in the rest of the world. It happens in one's imagery and one's fantasy, and one wants to share that, of course. But the point is that nekuda, that's so gadol, that's what we're looking for in Purim. That's why Purim is only once a year, one day a year. And it shouldn't be the rest of the year, because the waves can't be always high. That's Rav Kook's Pachad, I say very often, about Kol Omer Hal B'chol Yom HaReizim B'charevim got it. Everybody says Hal every day is a blasphemer. Why? Because he says, you can't, to say Hal, have to be on a high. If every day is a high, then something's wrong. It's blasphemy to say you're on a high every day. That's a lie. And besides, it makes the high not special. So therefore, HaReizim B'charevim got it makes a mockery of Hallel to say Hallel every day. Purim can only be once a year. Can't even be 7 days. It's got to be this so Galov, this height of waves which comes, and it's a singularity, but it impacts, if it's done right, on the rest of the year, on a person's entire life. One good Purim can be good for many, many years. You can have many years of lousy Purims, and one Purim can make a difference for an entire lifetime. Let's do one more, going back to Yud Aleph. There's a short one. There's a bit of a cryptic one, but it's good to end with. What's tut sich jetzt in alle Lomos? What's going on in all the worlds now? When we're at the Purim Suda. As the Mensch tut das mit das, when a person does something with intellect, sagen mir, as tut das, we say he's doing something. Ki yitein, when you put water on something, zok die Gemara dafkel das, that means you have to do something with das. Aber as a Mensch tut azach on das, person does something without das, then zok men as tut zich. We say, no, it happens. Not I'm doing it, it happens. When a person meets his friends and says, was tut sich, it means what's happening. Not what are you doing, what's happening. Kiyutan, zok the Gemara, it's talking about where to be machshir peres l'kabel tumah, so the water has to fall upon them in a way which is noach to you, but you don't do it yourself. You're acquiescent with it, but you don't have to do it yourself. Kiyutan, zok the Gemara, is shalol das. You don't even have to know, but that's what he's talking, which would have been nichalach had you known about it. But it happens. You're not doing it. Purim tut sich aus an das. Purim, everything, well, not literally, but everything is done without das. Purim tut ben nisht. On Purim we don't do, nor tut sich, but things happen. Vayuni koyim lifnei melech. The words of the biggest episode of Big Sam and Zeresh were read before Achashverosh. They doesn't say Vayikru lifnei melech, Vayuni kroim. They were read. Nitmen leint, not one reads, nor es leint sich, but they are read. Shas fangt sich on me'emasai korn shma. Shas opens with the words, from when do we read Shema? Me'emasai korn shma. Korin, active. From when do we read Shema? Aber Megillah is nish korin. But the first Mishnah Megillah doesn't say korin as a Megillah, but rather non nikres. Megillah nikres on Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Aleph. It's read, not we read. Hein darfen mir gar nicht tun. Before we don't do anything. Hein seine mir sicher mit unser es tut sich. We are today with what happens to us. It's an interesting way, cryptic way to end. But Laila hu nadadosh nasa melech. That night, the sleep of the king was disturbed. In other words, the idea of Purim is that because Baruch was standing behind the wall, he's looking through the window. He's squinting through the windows. He's watching the windows. He's squinting through the cracks. We think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not involved, and therefore we have to do things. But really, it's like it says in Pachad of Mishkan about to Moshe Rabbeinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, "Ato b'sayim manecha v'ani b'chlodi." You do what you have to do, but really, it's I'm going to do it. Like shtalus is necessary, but the main thing is that I'm going to bring my covenant to the Beis Hamikdash. By Purim, it's even more. By Purim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Ad lo yada," take away your das. You think that you need your das, your zbainus, in order to experience me. If you relinquish your das, if you relinquish your intellect, your emotion, everything, and just Hashtech Hashem Yehovacha, throw everything at HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will wake you out of your slumber. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will wake us up if we have the bitachon and the emunah and the simcha in that bitachon and emunah to come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So again, Purim has many mitzvahs. It's a cute word. It's only to Shaykh to the Suda. Purim has Megillah, has Mishlach Monos, has Matanos Havyonim. Mishatarach b'Shabbos, Yochel b'Shabbos. You have to go through the mitzvah Sayoim. But at the time of the Suda, you sit back and let the Ruach HaKodesh, which a person can experience to the extent one experience, wash over one. The waves of the Sogalav, a touch of Chaim, should come over us and we should experience them. We don't go out and do, we experience and perceive how Kodesh Baruch Hu is connected to us. Shall be Zaycha to such Madregas and Purim, and we shall be Zaycha to the Taka have experience, which is not life-changing, then year-changing, and we should be Zaycha to go from the Gula Purim to the Gula Pesach to the Gula Shlema, B'mei B'Yameinu Amen.